On the phone, we have a guest we've been trying to connect with for a bit now, and we have I think we finally got him. It's Colonel Bob Stachen. Good morning, Bob.
Morning, Mike.
How are you? How have you been?
I'm doing well. It's a chance to come on.
Yeah, it's nice to hear from you, and I've seen you in a couple of places, but I haven't been able to actually talk to you. So
well, I'm glad we do. Although I get to come to this because when you had me on last, the waffles at this, and I'm feeling very that won't have waffles with that. So I'm hoping this is the first of many opportunities.
Bob, are you on a cell phone? Because you're cutting out horribly.
All right. Well, I am not on a. Let me go off the speakerphone. How's that?
Yeah, that'd be a good idea because it's clipping out and it can hardly understand you.
How we doing? Is this a better one?
That's a little bit better, yeah.
All right. I was just being sad that this time when we meet, we weren't able to have the waffles together.
Oh, okay. yeah.
Which I enjoyed last time.
Well, last time when you had the waffles and everything, you ate them up pretty good. They were all gone.
I did. I remember I got up there and I hadn't planned to, and then all of a sudden, just one led to two, and you all made them too tasty in the whipped cream. So.
Well, I'm having waffles right now, but if you look at Facebook Live, you'll notice I'm lying.
Okay. All right.
So, first question right up for you is, you ran last time, unsuccessful in your bid last time. What makes you run this time? Well,
there's a few things. I know the day after, one of the first calls I got was from Joe Courtney, and he said, "Bob, listen, nobody wins their first time. I didn't win my first time. Kathy Austin didn't win her first time. That's kind of how you'll learn how to do it." And I got to say, I was still not sure what I was going to do, and then I was talking to my daughter, and she said, "Dad, you going to run?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not sure." And she said, "So my takeaway from this is that if you try something and fail, you just give up and don't do it again, Dad? Is that what you want me to learn from this?" So I got a little bit of pressure to make sure that I stood up again, and I still think it's the right fight. I think that there are policies and perspectives that I can bring to Hartford, and that I'll be able to advocate for this region in ways that can improve the quality of life for working people, and bring those values, bring the Eastern Connecticut values to Hartford.
Very good, very good. Okay, so you're in the race. You jumped in head first. Here we go. The election is not far away. It's only a couple of months away.
84 days, my friend.
84 days. You do you have like a blackboard or something like that? You're crossing days off as you go.
That's what I'm counting. But
all right. So here's one for you. Obviously we are in a pandemic, and there are different ways of governing through this, as we've seen with Governor Lamont and Raimondo and in Rhode Island. They're doing different things, but kind of the same. So what kind of suggestions would you give as a member of the Senate as far as trying to navigate through a pandemic? And I understand it may not even be a fair question to ask anybody because we've never been through this before.
Well, I would, that is the number one issue, and when I'm talking to voters in any sort of environment, that's the issue that comes up. And I'll start kind of with when you look at the timeline of the 1918 pandemic, as far as when we had a spring which had some of the deaths, then it kind of leveled off in the summer. It was light, and then most of the deaths, there were 560,000 deaths in the U.S., a majority of them occurred in September of that year. And arguably, we could almost take the masks, you could almost take headlines off of the paper in 1918 and switch them around and to the date almost. And so I think there are similarities. I think there's a model there which I think is sort of really interesting to see, because again, and so that's what I think brings a significant concern for September. When you look at that model again, we're following it fairly closely. I've since the end of March, when this kind of first started, the National Guard called up and said they were looking for a liaison officer to work with the Department of Emergency Management and Homeland Security in Region 4, which is pretty much all of eastern Connecticut. And so that's what you do when you're in the Guard. I raised my hand and have been filling that role since that time, since the end of March. And we're distributing PPE in the region. We got pods set up, points of distribution set up in Killingly and at Mohegan Sun for the municipalities, and then we also have a pod on Thursdays where we distribute to the first responders and municipal law enforcement and assisted living facilities. I gotta say, I think what Governor Lamont has done is focused on the science and listened to the experts on the spread of the disease. And I think when you look at the big rate is the positivity rate, which means the number of tests you have and what percentage of that is positive. And one of the big problems is now in Texas and Florida, that positivity rate is over 5%. The positivity rate in Connecticut as of yesterday, I believe, was 0.6%. So that's very good and is what makes Connecticut one of the safest states to be in. So I think as far as a direct approach to the pandemic, relying on the science, has been successful. And making decisions based on science and what the epidemiologists are saying, I think has proven to be effective, and I think it's saved lives in Connecticut, and I would continue to do that and continue to focus in that area.
Okay, good answer. Good answer. I think Connecticut is probably one of the safest places to be in the United States, and the numbers prove that. I've been watching the numbers ever since the pandemic started, where the curve is, where it started to flatten and where it started to drop. Let me ask you this: with us being at a 0.6 infection rate,
yep,
high school sports.
Well, it's a 0.6. Listen, it's a 0.6 positivity rate, and what that means is, for the number of tests that are given, that's the percent that comes back positive. And so that's not an infection rate. That's the positivity rate, because a lot of you hear people talk about the only reason there's more positives is because there's more testing, and that sort of, I think, is misinformation and misleading, because that positivity rate really is what the focus should be on as far as assessing where we are. You asked the question as far as recommendations. I think the questions that people should be asking now are, and what I would do from the Senate would be asking, okay, what is I am optimistic. I listened to Dr. Fauci, and I am optimistic that we will have a vaccine in the near future, knock on wood. He says he's cautiously optimistic we could have it by the end of the year. And we have a variety of pharmaceuticals who are working on that happening. I think the question that people should be asking at this point is, what is going to be the distribution process for that vaccine? Because I think that's the end. That's the game winner there. That's when people say, when is this going to be over? Because everybody's lives are disrupted unbelievably. There's so much stress. So there's mental health issues. This is unbelievably stressful. I got 3 teenage kids, one in college trying to figure out, do I enroll? Do I get an apartment? Do I do that? I got one in high school, a senior, who's trying to figure out what college and can't get in to take the SATs if she wanted to. I got another kid who's going into high school. I mean, this is so people losing their jobs, people not having health insurance. I mean, this is an incredibly stressful time. And when I speak with people, what I say is, follow the news about the vaccine, because I think that's going to be, that's the end game. is when there is a vaccine. That's what's going to allow us to get back to some type of normalcy. And if that vaccine can be developed by the end of the year, all to the better. And so, one of the questions I would be asking is, what is the plan for distribution of that vaccine? And there are, again, the Department of Emergency Management does have distribution processes set up to do that. But they haven't had to do it at this level that is going to be required. And I would be asking, what is going to be the process for that, for those distribution locations in order to allow people to get the vaccine? Because I think that's the end game in many ways on that.
Very good. Okay, let's kind of switch gears on you a little bit. Sure. You are in the Coast Guard. You hold the rank of colonel.
I'm in the Air National Guard. I've taught I've taught in the legal department at the Coast Guard Academy for about 10 semesters. I taught there, and they're phenomenal cadets, and I can't say enough about the cadets and the entire Coast Guard.
I just wanted to see if you were paying attention. That was all.
But I'm an Air National Guard guy.
How long have you been in the Air National Guard?
Well, since I've been in the Connecticut Air National Guard since 1997. I enlisted in the Air Force ROTC program when I was 18. In 1987, and did the ROTC program, then did 4 years of active duty in the Air Force, and then I'm a judge advocate, so I went to law school before I actually went in the Air Force. They gave me an educational delay, so I went in and was a JAG, and so it was fantastic. And it was in my 20s. I was single, no kids. I could go wherever I wanted. It was great. I went to Saudi Arabia and Bosnia and Egypt and Oman and Kuwait and Panama. It was great. I got to travel the world. But at the end of it, I had kind of grown up in this area, grown up in Connecticut, and I said, I'm going to come back to Connecticut. I'm not, the traveling every 2 years and moving every 2 years isn't the lifestyle that I wanted for my family. So I came back, and fortunately, the Connecticut Guard is here. The Connecticut Air National Guard was here, and so I was able to continue to serve. And so I've continued to serve in the Connecticut Air National Guard as sort of working as their lawyer since 1997.
Now, how do you feel that working with and for the Connecticut Air National Guard may have helped you or is helping you to become a candidate for Senate?
I think it's an ethos. And I think it's, I think a lot of people, policy issues aside, I think a lot of policy issues are used to divide people when they're really, there isn't a division. I think we actually agree upon a lot more than we realize. And so I think a lot of voters that don't get cut, they're just looking for values. They're looking for what is the candidate's values, because you don't know what the decisions are going to be. You don't know what the issues are going to come up. You don't know if a pandemic's going to come up, but you want to know what the person's values are. And again, I think what I bring to the table, we have a core values in the Air Force, and I've had them drilled into me since I was 18 years old. Integrity first, service before self, and excellence in everything you do. And for the first 10 years in the military, you learn them just because you're afraid someone's going to ask you what they are, and if you don't remember them, then you get in trouble. But I think after 10 years, now 20 years, coming, a little bit over 30 years, it becomes almost part of your DNA. And those are my values. Those are the values, my core values that I bring to my family. I bring to my work in running a small business legal clinic for low-income entrepreneurs. They're the values that I'll bring to the Senate. And I think people trust those values. The military is the most trusted organization in the United States, according to every poll. And I'm not going to tell you where lawyers stand on that poll. But the military is an incredibly trusted organization. And so and there's a reason for it. There's a reason for it because the people in the military get training, and not only that, they're held to standards, and they meet those standards. And as a JAG, part of what I did was make sure that generals meet those standards as well as slick sleeves who, are fresh into the service. So there's a reason why the military has that respectability in it. And so I think people recognize that, and it does give them a sense of comfort that they sort of they know what they're getting. Somebody who has served for that length of time honorably, they sort of know what they're getting, and they're ready to sort of engage in the conversation as far as what sort of policies.
In the Facebook room right now, I just want to go ahead and recognize Erica, who said, "You rock, Bob." And she also said, "We need honest people like you with integrity." So that is a comment that just came through on Facebook.
I appreciate it.
Pro Bob Stachen there.
Thank you, Erica.
So here's a subject that is very controversial, and I don't know if there are big differences on both sides of the aisle, and I'm going to put it right out there to you. There was a bill that just passed the House and the Senate, the Police Accountability Bill, or the Police Reform Act, or whatever the actual name is.
Yep.
How do you feel about that being passed? How would you have voted if you were in the Senate, and why?
Sure. And is Lisa here? I was hoping Lisa Coe was going to be here. So
I was too, but Lisa is on assignment. Let's leave it at that.
All right. Well, that's unfortunate because I would have liked to engage with her and talk further.
I'm sure she's listening, though.
She had, well, tell her to call in. I don't know if this is a call-in show, but we can certainly engage. Because I know she reached out to me through Facebook and started the discussion. And to be honest, I think it's a subject that is worthy of discussion rather than just Facebook posts. Because I think if you try to oversimplify it, I think that there are it's too important an area. So I was hoping to be able to speak with her on it, and I'm certainly willing to come back and speak as well. But what I would say is, so there's many parts of that bill. There's numerous sections. I think 44 sections of the bill. It's section 41, and I'm happy to talk about that one because that sort of is the one that I think is the highly controversial. There's other ones, in there, and I don't know, Mike, if there are other sections. I know the qualified immunity is what people deem as an incredibly important section of it, but there are other sections. I think
that's the most sticky one is the qualified immunity.
Sure. So here's what that is, and I said before that there's a lot of misinformation out there that tries to divide people, and there is money in you and me not agreeing. I think there is an entire market out there that wants to make sure that you, me, Lisa, and other people don't agree on things, because if people are angry, then they're going to, they'll send money in, they'll do things, and I think there's a whole industry out there and I think it's sad. And I think that, and that it goes back to Citizens United. It goes back to, the involvement of corporations and political elections and politics in general. So the starting point is I think there's a lot of misinformation and what that section does. Let me, if I can, and interrupt me at any point you want, but let's talk about immunity. Let's talk about what that is. And it really, the starting point is the starting point of our legal system, which is English common law, is what we adopted. And under that, there was sovereign immunity. And what that means is the king can do no wrong. The king can do no wrong. And that's the principle that was in this country until 1871. And that meant, and this wasn't just police officers, it meant all government officials have immunity and the only way you can get rid of it is if you waive that immunity. So in 1871, as part of the Reconstruction after the Civil War, it was called the Klux Klan Act, and basically it says, okay, there's qualified immunity, there's immunity, there's sovereign immunity, but it's waived if if a public official, again, not just police officers, but any public official, if a public official violates your constitutional rights. And that was a big step. That was meant to protect, recently freed slaves in the South, and it became somewhat of a bulwark of our legal system is that, that there isn't sovereign immunity when a public official who's paid by our tax dollars, who is a servant of the people, violates your constitutional rights. In our law, they said, no, that's you don't get immunity for that. And what the modern depiction of that is Section 1983 of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. So during that whole period, this is what the law was. And again, it was codified in 1964 in the Civil Rights Act. So you'll hear 1983 claims. Oh, that's a 1983 claim. What that means is Section 1983 of the Civil Rights Act. So again, since 1871, this concept has been as far as that there is an immunity when someone violates your constitutional right. Where the change started, Mike, was 1967, and there was a Supreme Court case that said, you know what, if a police officer has a good faith belief that they were acting reasonably, then they still have the immunity. And that was the first sort of creation of qualified qualified immunity, as far as having that as sort of an exception if there's a good faith. And that is still part of the law. That is part of Section 41 of the Act concerning police accountability in Connecticut. What happened in 1982? Okay, so this is fairly recent. In 1982, the Supreme Court came in, a fairly activist judicial decision, and we can talk about that as well, came in and said, listen, unless there is a clearly established standard for the misconduct, then we're not going to, then there's no liability. And what they meant by clearly established was that there was another case out there specifically on that conduct that said that so the officer would know that is unconstitutional conduct. So, an example, if someone was let's say someone was being arrested, let's say, I'm sitting here with my mother, I'm over my mother's house. Let's say my mother was being arrested and a police officer kicked her in the head. Clearly inappropriate conduct, clearly a bad apple, clearly, not what you're supposed to do. And violates her constitutional rights. Now, unless there is a case that had a similar case where a police officer kicked an elderly woman in the face, there would not be, under this, it could be dismissed. There's not a clearly established standard. That's what that 1982 case did. That's the only thing that this removes. That's the only thing that this state act removes, is that ability to require a clearly established standard, which basically means there has to be identical case. And you sort of see where it's somewhat nonsensical to have, this standard, because if there's never a case, then there's never a case, and it keeps going on and on, that there's no clearly established. This is the same thing in June 2020. This is the same bill that happened at the federal level, where they removed this clearly established standard defense to do that. Now, so does that make sense? I know I'm kind of draining on and on and on, but I think it's so important. Does that make sense?
Well, of course it does. I mean, there are things on both sides. See, I think one of the things that police are worried about, individual officers, and I'm not one, so I can't really speak for them, so this is my opinion, and these are things that I've heard, is that it's just basically, some of them feel it's going to make them harder to do their job in the respect that now they have to go out and possibly get insurance or liability insurance.
Great, let's talk about insurance.
And I just want to know, we only got about a couple of minutes left, because we have Todd Babbitt coming in from the town of Griswold. So
okay, I'm on the Board of Finance in Stonington, and we had someone come in, for our municipal insurance agent come in. There is no change in liability exposure for police officers. Before this bill, they were only the town is required to indemnify them all the way through litigation. And the only way a police officer is liable is if they're found to behave malicious, recklessly, or wantonly. That was before this act. That was the same standard. They were only responsible for that. And now after this act, it's the exact same standard. And what I would note, so there's no change there. And what I would say is, an insurance company cannot insure them for that. You can't go out and buy an insurance for reckless, wanton conduct, malicious conduct. You can't, I can't go buy an insurance and then go behave maliciously. An insurance company can't sell that. There's no insurance policies for them to buy. And again, I'm on the Board of Finance in Stonington, Connecticut. We had an insurance agent come, and these are the exact questions I asked. And at this point, they're like, well, we don't know what's going to happen. But he did confirm. He said, yeah, it's the same standard, and we can't, they can't buy a product. And that, that conversation is part of our Board of Finance meeting. But he said, you can't buy a policy for that. And that is the only time an officer would be held liable. So again, I think there is a lot of, now if I was a police officer and I heard people telling me, oh, now you're going to be liable, now you're going to lose your home, I would be scared. But I hope that we can start to talk about what actually are the facts and what is the reality. And the reality is there has been no change in their liability exposure, and they are still, Mike, I've worked with police officers. I've prosecuted cases. I've sat in sting operations and vans to help establish, trying to establish probable cause with police officers in these operations while I was in the Air Force, when I was a prosecutor. I've also been a defense attorney. I've been in charge. I've been in the Inspector General's office in Air Force reviewing cases, making sure that generals didn't misbehave. I believe in having standards and maintaining standards, and I also support law enforcement. And I believe that, that they do a very hard job, and I would love to help law enforcement do better. I've sat down with officers now. I've sat down with police chiefs and talked about these issues. And I'd love to talk more about body cams and those type of issues as well. I know you're tight on time, but there's a lot of positive things in this bill that actually helps police officers. And I think there's a lot of misinformation, but specifically in that qualified immunity section, I would just point out that it's just the misinformation regarding that is damaging to relations between police officers and the community. And that's sad, because I also really believe in community policing. I believe in police officers being part of the community. And I think this is driving a needless wedge that doesn't accurately reflect the direction of the law. And that's what I think is a shame. And I'll go back to the comment that there is an industry out there that makes money if you and I don't agree. And I think it's sad. And I think we need to work harder to make sure that we sit down, and hopefully Lisa as well some point, sit down and recognize where our common ground is and really talk about the facts, and not just be persuaded by this industry that makes money if we don't agree and we get angry at each other.
Well, I just bought us a little bit of extra time. I got a hold of Mr. Babbitt, and I told him that you and I were having a conversation right now.
If I were you, I would talk with Selectman Babbitt. I think I'm happy to talk, but he's the guy making the call. He's got a lot of work ahead of him with electricity and everything. So I hope I don't want to take too much of his time.
Well, he is rather electric. Have you seen him on the dance floor?
I have not. But now it is on my to-do list. If that is a thing that I'm supposed to see, that's going to the top of my to-do list, is to see Todd Babbitt.
Todd doing the Macarena is amazing. He's got moves I've never seen. Anyway, we're going to actually bump him up to a few minutes after 9. So if you don't mind, we're going to take a quick commercial break here. Okay. And then we'll come back, and there's a couple of other subjects that I'd like to still talk to you about if you have time.
Sure, I do.
All right, we're going to continue our conversation with Colonel Bob Stachen, running for the 18th District Senate seat here in the state of Connecticut. And we'll be back in a minute right here on SN Internet Radio.
Better, much better, so much better. Right insurance at the right price. You buy better.
Hurricane season is upon us. Did you know insurance companies can issue moratoriums that prevent you from securing coverage when there's an impending storm? Homeowners, business owners, property owners, act now. Don't let your coverage leave you out in the rain. The licensed professionals at the Burns Agency are here to help. Call, email, or chat with us online today. Don't let the next natural disaster become an insurance disaster. The Burns Agency, proudly serving Eastern Connecticut since 1932.
Better, much better, so much better. The right insurance at the right price.
just wish for a winning deal. Make it dish, it will make it real. Don't just wish, make it dish.
Hey everyone, this is Ellis Dish from Dish Motors. We're back better than ever with our new sales and service center on Route 32 in North Franklin. Everyone says there's nothing better than dealing with the dishes, and here's why. Selection. We have the area's largest inventory of off-lease, one-owner vehicles of all makes and models. You name it, we got it, or I'll get it for you at no additional charge. Quality. Each vehicle goes through a rigorous 120-point safety and quality check. Nothing leaves the lot without my personal approval. Convenience. We have financing sources for almost any situation. We offer on-site registration processing, and we have maintenance programs for years of stress-free ownership. And now open for all your maintenance needs. Our full-service repair facility, where oil changes start at just $19.99. Call today for your appointment or just stop by. So save thousands and deal with the dishes. Route 32, North Franklin. Or check us out online at dishfranklin.com or ring us 860-383-4750.
Just wish, make it dish.
All right, let's take a look at the forecast right now for Eastern Connecticut. Today, Tuesday, patchy fog burning off and making way for sunny skies, high near 90 degrees, but it's going to be feeling a lot warmer than that due to the heat index. Going to make it feel like it's about 96 or even closer to 100. Tonight, patchy fog for your overnight and partly cloudy skies. Temperatures balmy. That's right, balmy. Is that even a word? It's sure better than the word moist. How's that? Because it's going to be humid, right around 70 degrees. And for tomorrow, small chance of showers and thunderstorms, mainly in the afternoon, with possibly some patchy fog in the morning as well. Otherwise, just partly sunny skies, highs around 90. And then also, again, balmy and moist, because it'll be humid, 97 degrees on the heat index. So there you go. All right, 20 minutes in front of 9 o'clock. We are speaking with the Democratic candidate for Senate in the 18th District. It's Mr. Bob Stachen, Colonel Bob Stachen. And we were a little pressed for time, but I reached out kind of incognito to Todd Babbitt, who was supposed to be occupying this time, but he said, no, go ahead, let Mr. Stachen talk. I'll come on after 9. I said, that's great. So, Bob, we've got probably about 10 more minutes, if that's all right with you.
That sounds good.
All right.
And thank you, Selectman Babbitt.
So, let's go. Where do we want to go here?
Schools.
Want to go to the schools?
I think so. I think that's the question you get. That's the question I get everywhere is what people want to talk about, is what's going on with the schools. And I think you talked about sports and I it's tough. I think it's really it's difficult. My mother was a retired teacher of 35 years. My sister's teaching in a school district. She's a librarian. I teach at a law school. I run a small business clinic where we provide legal services to low-income entrepreneurs, but we also have class sessions, and I'm trying to figure out how we're going to have those class sessions and how that's going to happen. These are difficult times, and I think, but it'll go back to the first comment that I made, is I do think it needs to be driven by science. I do think that we need to listen to what the experts are saying as far as the risks, as far as the spread. I know, and what you've seen over the summer, I think, is sort of a progression that's been reflected in the incidence rate. And so in June and July, it felt like there was a bit of there was a less urgency because the numbers reflected that, and there was a downward trend. And so the plan was we open completely and everybody wears masks. And I think the numbers have come back and raised additional alarm since that time. And so now I believe, and I know my school, I've been in Stonington, I've been in discussions with our Board of Ed as a member of the Board of Finance and sort of going through these. But, now we're kind of on this hybrid model, and I believe that's what a lot of schools, I don't know, Mike, is that what Griswold's doing?
Griswold, Griswold has gone to a hybrid model. First they went in, they were going to do, of course, full in-school learning.
Yep.
That was the idea at first. Then they backpedaled a little bit, and now we're at the hybrid model. But Bob, I do want to make a comment and
Sure.
and get your answer on one thing, is that You say that or that this is based on, or the progression is based on science of the decisions that they're making. I and a lot of others also feel it is based on fear. I think a lot of, I mean, we said it, the positivity rate, 0.6%, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so it which is keeps going down. The hospitalizations are going down. If this is all happening, and those are good pieces of news, why are they canceling everything? You know, why are they going? I mean, possibly there's even rumors that they are going to go back to full distance learning again. It hasn't happened yet, but there's that possibility. So if the numbers keep going down and down like they are,
right?
Is it science, or is it a little bit of fear as well?
Mike, there's 163,000 deaths in the country. And so I think there is something to be afraid of. Since World War II, the number of deaths in combat by military members, Vietnam, Korea, the Gulf, everything, is about 99,000. So we now almost have 1.5 times the number of deaths from this pandemic. So I would be careful to say that this is some sort of just fear-mongering tactic, because there's deaths and there's cases. So now, has Connecticut done a good job? Yes, we have. And should the work that Connecticut did been done at the federal level? Yes, it should have. These sort of policies should have been in place nationwide. And if they had been, and you see in countries where it was, whether South Korea, whether Germany, New Zealand, you see countries where they had a federal approach to it, then, and federal leadership, then you saw the entire country doing better. We don't have that. We basically have each state trying to do it. So because of that regionalization, because of that, we have people, and I believe we had people yesterday from Florida trying to get into the state and ended up getting fined because they wouldn't quarantine. But we have people coming in from states where there's over 500,000 cases and the rate is over 5%. And they're like, whoa, I'm going to Connecticut because Connecticut's great. So I think that if we had had a strong federal policy, Mike, that had the same guiding principles that we had in Connecticut and Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and New York. I mean, you can look at that map. You see where it worked. If we had that, we all could have been opening. I believe that if we had started in January, as soon as it with proper procedures and listening to scientists, then we would have been able to open our schools. That didn't happen. We did not have that federal approach, and because of that, that's where we are now. And I think because of that, again, we have to be on the conservative side. Despite the fact that we've done so well, that we're the best, probably the best state in the union.
Absolutely.
I mean, to say now we can have lax standards and don't realize that people are going to be coming up from California and and they already have from Texas and from Florida and coming in, and that the virus is just going to stop on 84 right at the border, and right at 95 it's going to, that's not what's going to happen. And so we need to prepare, because lives matter, and because people are going to die. And again, 160,000 deaths, and I think it's going to be a horror. My kids are going through this. My mother's 83 years old. She can't go anywhere. This is absolutely horrible. The sports. My daughter was in an all-state choir that got canceled. I mean, everybody's got their list of things where their life has been impacted, and I understand that. But I would say we have to continue to listen to scientists, to listen to recognize that we are not an island, and that we need to take these things into account. And again, I think the end game is the vaccine, Mike. I think the end game is when we get a vaccine, making sure that we're ready to make sure, and let's make sure that no health insurance policies are saying, well, we don't cover this, or people who don't have insurance, one of the 181,000 people in Connecticut who don't have insurance, are going to have any trouble getting the vaccine. I think that's where the focus needs to be right now, and it's frustrating. It's frustrating because we could have done better.
One more question.
Yeah.
And for today, You've come out, you have come out and with full support for Joe Biden.
Yes.
Why did you make? Other than being also a Democrat, and going along with party lines, if that had anything or not did have anything to do with it, why support Joe Biden? What is your belief there, and how do you align with him?
Right. So I think Joe Biden is qualified to take us through these difficult times. When you look at the work he did in 2008 as vice president, working with President Obama and bringing our economy back after the Great Recession, we're going to have to do a similar. We're going to have similar activities coming up now, and going forward to get us out of the economic problems that we're in right now. He has that experience to do that. I also think it's an integrity, and I don't. Again, 30 years, I don't like to criticize the commander-in-chief. And what I'll say is that, military members in the reserves have a special ability to be able to kind of go back and forth in the reserves and the Guard. Senator Lindsey Graham was also an Air Force JAG, like myself. I played golf with him down at South Carolina, and he's from South Carolina. I thought he was going to be a little better. But there is and he certainly didn't hold back on criticizing President Obama, despite the fact that he was a member of the Air Force Reserve. So I think we do, under our law, the members of the Guard and Reserve have that flexibility to be able to both serve and also participate in the polity. If I was full active duty, I couldn't do that. But I don't like to come out against a commander-in-chief, but I think that his record speaks for itself, and I think he has been misleading, and there's been misinformation that's been provided to the public, and I think it's cost lives. And I think that at a variety of levels, that's simply unacceptable. And I do believe that my opponent should also indicate where she stands on this. She indicated in 2016 that she does support him, and we really haven't heard anything since, despite all of his actions and all of his comments, which I think is unfair to the voters, and to not put them in a position to be able to make a decision, to understand what someone's values are. What are their values? What are their core values that they bring to the table? I think I'm pretty clear on what mine are, and I think honesty, and I think capability is huge. I mean, I think this is clearly demonstrated that he does not have the skill set to lead this nation through difficult times. People. So I will, again, and I certainly believe that Vice President Biden does have that skill set. He's proven, he's going to know what to do. He's going to put the right people around him. He's going to listen to smart people. He knows how to govern, and I think everybody's going to have just a sigh of relief when we kind of move past this reality TV show that we're in, where, every day some, bizarre comment comes out and you're just like, this is coming out of the White House. And I think we're so tired. I think everybody's just tired and wants to get past this. And I think Vice President Biden is the person to bring us out of this, and bring us forward and prove what a strong nation we are and what a strong country we are and what great people we have, that we can overcome things. We overcame in the Civil War. We've overcome in World War I and World War II. We've overcome a lot, and we will overcome this. He's not that strong that he's going to bring our country down, yet he is a threat to our democracy. And our democracy, I think we're all starting to realize, is a fragile thing. And it's something that we need to protect, and it's something that we need to work for, and it's something that we need to earn. And that's why someone like me, who'd never been involved in politics before 2017, got involved, because I think that our democracy is in jeopardy. But there are solutions. I think Vice President Joe Biden is a leader who can find those solutions and bring us out of this, so that we can look back, we can learn, but we can move forward as a region, as a state, and as a country.
So does that mean that you can come to the station and do a TikTok video with me?
Well, I don't. I believe that depends if Microsoft buys them, doesn't it? Isn't that the thing? Only if my daughter choreographs, because she's been trying to get me to do that, and I'm not sure that's my skill.
Yeah,
I'll do if you get Todd Babbitt to do it, I'm in.
Well,
you told me he's a dancer, and if he's going to choreograph and he needs a backup dancer, then I'll happily take that on.
Very good. All right, one very last. This is kind of a caveat off of the Biden question. You said that he has the skill set. He will put smart and educated people around him to help him govern. So the question is, in your estimation, is it Kamala Harris? Is it Susan Rice, or somebody that has not even been mentioned?
Ooh, the vice president pick. If I knew that, I'd be a much better politician or a political scientist. I think he has fantastic choices, and I think it reflects the fact that this country's moving forward, and that we have such a wonderful bench that we can now look to and say, look at all these people who are on there. The people you mentioned, as well as Elizabeth Warren. I mean, there's a lot of we have the talent. We have the talent, and I would say that the person who's not selected as vice president, whoever the people are that aren't selected as vice president, I look forward to hearing how they fill roles in commerce, in the treasury, in the judiciary, in the attorney general's office, because we can have such a strong bench, and we can have such a strong team going forward, and we need it.
Well, who's your VP pick, Bob? Who's your VP pick?
I'll leave it. I think he's. I'm not gonna. I don't. I think there's such a strong bench. I think any of them are going to bring so much to the ticket, and I just think my hope is that the people who aren't selected are given significant roles, because I think that, again, I think it's such a strong group of competent people who have raised their hand and are willing to serve, and I would just say any of them are great, but certainly nobody who's not selected shouldn't be in the process of helping our country go forward, and I don't think any of them would do that. I think they're public servants, and I think that they, even if they're not selected in that, I think they're all team players, and they're going to say, all right, I'm watching the Michael Jordan Netflix thing, and we need Michael Jordan, but we need some Scottie Pippens too. We need some Steve Kerrs too, and let's get even Dennis Rodman sometimes.
I was just going to say Rodman.
Yeah, that might be a little spooky at this point. but we need some Scottie Pippens. We need some Steve Kerrs, and they all matter.
Well, we can send Rodman back to North Korea.
Yeah, to North Korea. Yeah, he might be one that I'm not sure. I don't know if we need that model.
Can play some video games that they do.
Yeah, but I'll take a Steve Kerr, a Scottie Pippen any day of the week.
Bob, thank you very much for your time this morning.
All right, my pleasure. I hope to do it again, and hopefully next time I'll be able to make it up there, and we'll have some waffles. You'll tell me what to bring, so I'm an appropriate guest. Last time I walked in, I didn't know there was going to be a buffet, but hopefully you'll let me walk in the door with something, because my mother raised me better than that, to walk into a feeding without something in my hand. So I look forward to it. I look forward to seeing Lisa and Mike. Thanks so much for your time.
All right, Colonel Bob Stachen, thank you again, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, be good.
All right, bye-bye. All right, Colonel Bob Stachen, running for the 18th District seat in the Senate. And we have Todd Babbitt coming up right after 9 o'clock right here on SNSN Internet Radio.